Hi everyone, my name is Nicholas, and I'm the local high life, as they call me in the neighborhood. I live a very lavish life for my own pleasure. We have a big house in the heart of the city, expensive cars, designer clothes, and a bunch of money in our bank accounts. We owe this life to our grandfather, a famous millionaire. He made a fortune making coffee. My grandfather had many places where they'd make all this coffee and made a wonderful drink, and his business was booming. All of his family was involved in developing the business, and my parents were no exception. I admit that the most difficult thing was done by my grandfather, while the rest just kept the business afloat. Perhaps because of this, all my relatives, we all used to live at someone else's expense, and all that we had is credit to the work of our grandfather. He always swore by saving that we were lazy and freeloaders, and that when it was difficult, no one believed in him. As soon as the business began to profit, then immediately everyone in the family had come. Grandfather met us every day with such thoughts, but he still helped us financially because he didn't want his worthless relatives to live on the street. I'm 25 years old now, and I was already thinking about how to separate from my parents and live by myself. To buy myself an apartment somewhere close to the sea, a beautiful sports car, maybe hire a housekeeper to cook and clean, and I'll drive around town listening to music and enjoying my life. One day at dinner, I told my parents and our grandfather about my intentions, but mom and dad wouldn't even listen. Nicholas, you're 25 years old. It's time to settle down, get a job, meet a girl, get married, and have kids. We're not getting any younger, and we want grandchildren. Oh, this family talk again. What an obsession. What is it with every parent and wanting a bunch of grandchildren? Grandfather joined our conversation. I have a good acquaintance, Mr. Scott. His daughter is a famous writer in Britain. She went to Cambridge, was a Red Cross volunteer, speaks 5 languages, and is very pretty. Maybe you two should meet. I agree with your parents. I would love to see great-grandchildren. I shook my head and got up from the table. I'm only 25, not 55. I'm young, and I'm rich, and I want to live by myself. For myself. My grandfather shouted at me that I would never get an apartment or an allowance if I was so cavalier about his wishes. You know, he has very bad trait. He thinks that everything can be bought with money, even people. And unfortunately, it often does not work out. As promised, Grandpa blocked my cards, took away my car. I was angry, unbearably angry. This went on for a day, a week, another week, and I couldn't take it anymore. I went to my grandfather and told him I was ready to meet that girl or whatever he wanted, just as long as I could get my cards back. I got a smirk and winning look on my face. He handed me a piece of paper with a phone number and told me to be very polite. It's not just a nice girl, but the daughter of his partner. And our wedding is the key to the prosperity of our businesses. I didn't say anything because I realized that without my grandfather and his fortune, I am a nobody and I can't be the high life guy I always am. That same evening, I called the number of the girl. On the other end of the line, I was answered by a very polite voice, who introduced herself as Nicole. We talked for a while and made an appointment. The next day, I bought a beautiful bouquet of flowers. I was waiting outside of a restaurant for Nicole. A beautiful car pulled up and out she stepped. My grandfather told me that she was beautiful and sweet, but I didn't think that she was going to be this pretty. I was speechless with admiration. Nicole came over, held out her hand and greeted me. We talked about different stuff and I realized that I'd fallen in love with her. This had never happened to me before. Grandpa, thank you so much. Nicole was very smart. She talked about her father's business and how she had been working for the company for a long time and helped the family promote and develop the products. We make thermo mugs and cups, and your grandfather's coffee suits us perfectly. So for the past few weeks, we've been in talks about expanding our collaboration, launching a targeting and mandatory market analysis. She talked and talked and I listened without understanding the whole point. After all, I never worked in an enterprise, and all I did was just ask for money and spend it. Nicholas, what are your plans? What are you doing at the moment? She asked. Well, I'm helping my grandfather. I spend every day in his office doing this and that, what's it called, market analysis. So busy that I come home late and there's no food. It's a mess. My parents also spend all their time on the road, so no one takes care of the houses. Nicole picked up on that. Oh, you need help around the house? I can recommend a cleaning service. A friend of mine owns one, and I can help you out with a good maid. Let me call and get the details. Nicole immediately dialed her friend and invited the maid to our house tomorrow. I thanked her for her help and we continued our conversation. That evening, I texted Nicole, telling her that I really liked her and wanted to be friends. Next morning, there was a knock at the door of our mansion. There was a nice girl on the doorstep who introduced herself as Kathy. She showed me her resume and said that she had a lot of experience. I liked her and took her in for the job. Kathy did her job to the best of her ability. Cleaned, did laundry, washed the floors, and cooked dinner afterwards. We talked sometimes. She was a very good conversationalist. One day while cooking, she asked if I had a girlfriend. I said that I didn't have one yet, but my grandfather found me a candidate, a nice girl, and she's nice and beautiful, and more importantly, our possible relationship will be good for business development. That is, first of all, the main thing is financial condition, right? The question took me by surprise. I really liked Nicole, and at the same time, out of habit. I could not let it be known that my heart was occupied, a perpetual bachelor. Money is important, I admit it. In business, it's all about finances. But you know, Kathy, you're very pretty and very sweet. If you weren't working for my family, I think we'd make a pretty good couple. That answer clearly pleased the maid, and she smiled. And I thought to myself, man, what are you saying? Yeah, Katie's a nice girl, but Nicole's the one who might be your girlfriend or even your wife. I waved goodbye to Katie and went about my business. Once I was done, I decided to call Nicole, but she didn't answer me for some reason. I figured maybe she would call back later. A few hours went by, but Nicole didn't call back or text. I thought that was strange. When I got home, I didn't see Katie. I started calling for her, but security told me that Katie had left the house a couple of hours ago. I got mad. Why would a maid allow herself a day off without permission? Started calling Katie and she wasn't answering either. This whole situation was starting to irritate me terribly. I wasn't used to not getting any calls returned. Suddenly, I got a message from Nicole, but what it said shocked me. Nicholas, I thought the best of you. I thought that you were really interested in me, but it turns out this interest is purely financial. You're a mercenary, silly, stupid major who's a zero without money grandfather. And yes, and Kate told me all about your flirting and your plans for me. It's a good thing that my friend helped expose you. Have a nice day. I froze in amazement. And then I remembered that Nicole's friend had sent us the maid, and apparently she had found out everything through Katie. Damn, I was so screwed. I felt sad in my heart and realized that I'd lost a girl like that, all because of some innocent flirtation. I hadn't seen Nicole since then. She wouldn't return my calls, saying that I was a nobody without my grandfather's money, and that had a big impact on me. After that, for the first time, I decided to help with my company's business. Grandpa liked this idea and took me on as an intern. I'm taking small steps towards independence and wanted to prove that I'm not just a millionaire's grandson, but an actual person who can deliver value. And maybe one day, Nicole could forgive me. I mean, I really hope so. If you liked the video, then please leave a like and comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe.
Hello everyone, my name is Jana. I go to school and have the best family. My mom and dad just adore each other. My mom works as an accountant and my dad is an office manager. Every morning they put on suits, white shirts and leave for work. They have the same black briefcases and I think they're the most stylish. I'm very proud of them and I dream that I have the same family. One day, my mom asked me to bring her wallet from her briefcase, but I mixed them up and accidentally got to my dad's one. And there was a weird calendar where right on the cover was my half-naked dad in overalls with a drill in his hands. Oh god, what is this? I looked through the calendar and there were many similar men and all of them almost naked. I was so lost, I could not understand where these photos came from and why was my dad among them. Honestly, this was very strange. What do you think was going on? And why is a manager holding a drill? Where is his office suit and why is he wearing overalls? I had a lot of questions, but my mother was waiting, so I put everything back and carried her wallet. I immediately wanted to tell her everything, but then I looked at the photos where they were so happy together and I couldn't. I thought that mom would not survive if dad did something bad. All day long, I thought only about this. I could not study as usual and I did not want to eat. What does this calendar mean? And who is my dad? All these questions haunted me even at night, and then I realized that I could not do this anymore. I was very afraid that if I asked my dad, he would not tell me the truth, and I should know everything for sure because my mom's well-being depended on it. Then I decided to follow him. The next morning, with my smartphone in my hands, I drove with my friend after my dad's car. My friend was a couple of years older and, unlike me, she had a license. Dad turned from the center and drove onto the highway, and then drove into some random house. He was not there for long. Then he got out and went to the car. I looked at him and could not believe my eyes. He was not wearing his office outfit, but the same jumpsuit from the calendar. In his hands was not a briefcase, but some kind of bag. He got into the car and we followed him. After a while, he stopped near a residential building, called someone, and a young girl in a dressing gown opened the door. She was in just a robe. No, can you imagine who meets a man in a dressing gown and moreover a stranger? Nobody does this, only if you know the man very well. The worst thing is that the girl was very young, probably a recent high school grad. What's going on? An hour later, he left the house and drove off again, a residential building again. He is now met by a woman a bit older, but very beautiful. I take the photos again. He's gone for an hour. All this time we're making assumptions about who it might be and why he came here. Nothing decent comes to mind. Dad goes out again, goes to the car, drives again, a residential building, and again a young woman meets him. He leaves an hour later, and then he goes to the car and the girl catches up with him and gives the money. He takes it and drives on. You see, she gave him money. He spent an hour at her house and then took the money and drove off. What's going on? What does he do? My friend says that he probably dances for women for money, which she saw in the movies. Sometimes women, for example, a bachelorette party, order dancers. Men dress up as police officers or firefighters and then they dance for them, gradual and dressing, but usually not completely. Adults like it and they even pay money for it. And it looks like she's right, because it made sense why he was half naked in those photos. Probably this was an ad for their company. I was shocked. So he's cheating on my mom and me? He does not work as a manager. He dances for money. This is just terrible. How can this be happening? I have a phone full of pictures of different women and I can show them to my mom. And what if she gets very upset and divorces my dad? I do not want this. My dad is a good person. And what if she learns everything from strangers? It will probably hurt her even more. While we were driving after Dad, I kept thinking about what to do, and in the end, I decided that I should talk to him and that he could not get away. I must catch him red-handed. We again drove to a building, and this time it was an apartment building, and I ran quickly after him to catch him. He rang the doorbell, and a very old woman opened it. This is ridiculous. Do such ladies arrange bachelorette parties? Or was it a 60-plus party? Ew, I felt disgusted by this. My mom is so beautiful. How can he do that? I waited 10-15 minutes and then I decided that it was time to start and rang the doorbell. There was silence and then the door opened and there was my dad. His hands were covered in blood. I screamed wildly and ran away. He shouted something after me, ran after me, but I quickly jumped into the car and yelled at my friend so that she would leave faster. She was so scared that she drove out of the yard at great speed and drove for a long time without stopping until we were outside of the city. There she stopped and asked what happened. I couldn't say anything. I got hysterical. For a very long time, my friend tried to calm me down, but I could not come to my senses. I only kept repeating, "He couldn't kill. He couldn't." When my tears ended, the dullness began. I did not understand what was happening, where I was, and I did not want to do anything. It seemed that even breathing hurt. My friend offered to take me home, but I got hysterical from just the thought of seeing my dad. We sat for another couple of hours in the car, and then a police car and my parents came for us. When I saw my dad, I refused to get out of the car. My mom tried to persuade me for a long time, and then there was an ambulance, then a hospital. In the morning, my mom picked me up and we went home. I was silent on the way and she did not ask anything. After about 20 minutes, I realized that we were not going home, but to my dad's work. I was scared. When we arrived, we were met by a man. He was very tall and cheerful. He said and invited me to come inside. I did not really want to, but he said that it was important, and it's a pity that I did not do it yesterday. I exhaled and followed him. There was a normal office. We were greeted by those men whom I saw on the calendar. All of them were wearing overalls. There was a large ad on the wall with the inscription, "Experienced craftsman, full range of services, nice prices, all the tools you need are in stock, a plumber, an electrician, a welder, a carpenter, installation of doors and locks, sewage cleaning, we work around the clock, quality assurance, plumber, an electrician, welder, what? I did not get that. Does this mean that these people are not dancers? They just renovate? I turned to my mom, and my dad was standing next to me. He hugged me and began his story. It turns out that he was laid off and could not find a job. He did not want to upset my mom and me and said nothing about it. Then he found an ad for the company, husband for an hour. This company did repair services. Most often, their services were used by women who did not have husbands or whose husbands were very busy. One time, my dad took electrician classes and could easily repair small household appliances, so he was hired for this job. Every day, he pretended to go to work in the office, while he himself drove here, changed outfits, took orders, and then went to work all over the city. My mom did not know anything, but he liked this job and the earnings were good, and he was going to tell everything, but did not have time. The calendar thing was also easily explainable. Turns out that many companies, for example, Australian firefighters, release charity calendars every year. The money from these sales goes to help various organizations that provide support and protection. So, every year, this company supports a center for the protection of women, and all the employees participate in a photo shoot. My dad brought one calendar home to show me and my mom, but he again did not have time. You might ask, why was there blood on his hands? Well, turns out he was cutting the wire and cut himself, and he even had to put bandage on his arm. Such an incredible story happened, but it happens. My mom and I are not angry with Dad, although of course we are a bit upset that he hid everything from us. If you like this story, then give it a thumbs up and write us some comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe.